This is the rare occasion, okay, that I walk in and talk to Mike Hoskins before the show about what we're going to do. And I say, I really want to talk about the NBA right off the bat. I talk NFL all the time. Yesterday, in my mind, was one of the weirder days. It's just like I get to be a fan and view it from that perspective that I can remember from start to finish. So let's bring in somebody who's going to have a lot more insight than I do. Joe Vardon, senior NBA writer for The Athletic right now. Joe, we started out with Michael Malone being fired. We finished the night with Luka being ejected in crunch time from a huge game for apparently yelling at a fan, and that's without even mentioning, the Timberwolves blowing a 24-point lead. It seems like general chaos in the NBA, but I'm most curious about this. When something happens, like Luka, who, listen, he has a history of jabbering with fans and with refs and with everybody else. Does the NBA look at this situation? Will they dig into it and try to figure out who is actually saying what to whom? How does the league handle a situation like this?
Yeah, for sure, because there are fines involved with these technicals and ejections. And so, they'll take a look into it and do some interviews, whether it's with the officials, with Luka, with bystanders, and you can get the technical rescinded. Obviously, there's nothing they can do about the game part, but you hate to see that. You hate to see a player removed from crunch time of a game, especially a game that mattered like that one last night. But to your point, I mean, Luka has a well-known history and reputation of just constant bantering with officials, to the point where he could have been talking to a fan and an official, based on the context and the past history, could have suspected otherwise. So, it's one of those things where maybe his reputation got him. But yeah, I mean, the league takes a look at all this stuff.
When you look at the Lakers and where they are right now, and there's been some streakiness even after acquiring Luka, they're hanging in the balance there, and so is the rest of the Western Conference in terms of who's going to end up being the 4, 5, 6 seeds, who's going to end up in those play-in scenarios. But setting aside what happened after Luka got ejected, what do you make of the Lakers at this point in time, a week or so out from the playoffs?
Well, I'm here in Dallas for tonight's game between the Lakers and the Mavericks and Luka's return here. And I have to say, I like the Lakers. I mean, you mentioned they were streaky, but by and large, a lot of that had to do with LeBron being out. I think with Luka and LeBron on the floor at the same time, their record's really good. They're bigger. They're a big team. And I know, you don't get bigger by trading Anthony Davis. That's not what I mean. But if you think about, Rui Hachimura, being back in the fold and Jared Vanderbilt, and then you have Austin Reeves, who's really coming into his own, playing along two of the greatest passers and court vision guys ever. They're a very good team. And we always talk about experience as we get into the playoffs. And this is a team with, of course, a bona fide face of the league, multi-time champion in LeBron, and then somebody who represented the West in last year's finals in Luka. So, health is a big thing for them, but I think they're going to be a tough out.
So right now, the Lakers, despite all that, they're sitting in the 3 seed in the West, exactly 1 game ahead of 4 other teams, 1 game ahead of the top play-in spot. And by the way, Joe, 2 of those 4 teams have fired their head coaches in the past couple of weeks. I don't remember a whole lot of precedent for teams in that playoff position. Speaking specifically on what happened yesterday with the Nuggets, were there any signs? I know when I cover the NFL and sometimes things will happen and I kind of rewind in my brain oh, there was this I should have picked up on, that there was an issue. Were there signs that there was real trouble in Denver?
Yes, but there's never a sign when you are within, shouting distance of third in a conference with 3 games left or however many are left for the Nuggets. There's never a sign that you're going to fire your coach at that point. There have been signs for months and really all season about a general, sort of going separate ways between, Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, who were both let go yesterday. But it's just not a move that you think happens in the moment. And yes, the Nuggets have lost 4 in a row. They also struggled a little bit when Jokic was out, with some nagging injuries, but that's expected. So, it's hard to wrap your head around this. It's hard. They're pitching Nikola to win another MVP. And while his statistics are incredible, again, I think it's going to be a hard sell to voters to consider him the most valuable player in a year where the ownership obviously deemed
Right.
the year not to be good enough to keep the coach. So, it was certainly a surprise, just like the Memphis thing was a surprise. The Grizzlies people were saying, well, if you were here on the ground, you wouldn't have been so surprised. But I don't buy that. I mean, you tend not to go away from what got you there. And I think when Taylor was let go, I think the Grizzlies were in third or somewhere between third and fifth.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the Nuggets. I mean, I think maybe they're fifth now, but 2 days ago they were in third or something like that. So it's crazy. I mean, I will see, how this goes long term with what happens in Denver. I mean, they're not even 2 years removed from winning it all.
Yeah.
And I just, I mean, what a shot at the profession to just decide that soon out from winning that the coach is no longer a fit for your team.
So as you look at the West right now, and even setting aside to the extent that we can, the turmoil for the Nuggets and the Grizzlies here, is this a clean path in your mind for the Thunder to run straight through to the NBA Finals? Or is there somebody based on the moves the Lakers have gotten, if everybody's healthy, based on, I mean, the Timberwolves seem to be putting it together and then deliver an absolute flat performance last night. Who, if anyone, can actually challenge the Thunder in the West?
Well, Tom, it goes back to this experience that we're talking about because the Lakers have it, the Nuggets have it, the Warriors have it. Whoa, with who they already had and then who they added and what they've looked like since. So you start with those teams, and then the Clippers have it certainly with Kawhi and with Ty Lue. In terms of championship experience. So you look there, and then I mean, like you mentioned, the Timberwolves are finally seem to be putting it together. So whereas in the East, you're almost exclusively talking about Cleveland and Boston. The conversation seems to be much more wide open in the West, and I think that's funny because I mean, I'm engaging in it too, obviously. But then every single time I watch the Thunder, I come away thinking, wow, that team is so good and so deep. So I do really like the Thunder. I think they are the best team in the West. I think they're the most talented team in the West. They've done it right all year long. It's just going to come down to does their style of play and their lack of experience in those final 2 rounds, the conference finals and the finals, will that come back to get them? Because otherwise it shouldn't. They are the best team in the West.
You mentioned Golden State in there, and obviously they've got guys there. They've got a coach who have been there before. Where do they stand in this entire thing? Again, knowing based on the variance of these final 5 games, the Warriors could be in a spot where, they're the 6th and they're facing the Lakers, or they could even be in a play-in scenario.
Right. I think the goal in San Francisco all along has just been to avoid the play-in. So they're going to play their guys until they have that part wrapped up. And things are so tight in the West right now that the only things that are settled are first and second place. Right now the Lakers are third, but I mean they have to win to clinch a playoff spot. So they could end up theoretically in a play-in. And it goes all the way down the list. So, the Warriors are on track to do what they had set out to do when they made the Jimmy trade. Things have looked so much better there. They're 7th in the NBA in defense, or at least they were the last time I checked a couple days ago. In fact, I'm sure they are because the Cavs were 8th and they haven't been very good on that side of the ball lately. So yeah, they're better than they have been defensively. Jimmy's presence has given Steph some breathing room. He seems rejuvenated, and Draymond Green, it's funny. He gets on his podcast and he says, "Well, I would like to be Defensive Player of the Year again," and it's almost like him saying that is what brought the eyeballs to his candidacy. But then if you actually take a look at it, the Warriors are seventh in defense, and they don't really have a traditional center. So he is their defensive anchor, and they do seem to play well on that side of the ball when he's there. So I'm not sure he's going to win the award, but I mean, he's at his age to be in the conversation is awesome.
The Celtics, you mentioned them and the Cavs in the East. You watched that game last night. This felt like a bigger moment maybe in the Knicks season than it just would be on paper. It's 1 of 82. They're not catching the Celtics for the 2 seed here, but that was a dagger-type moment. It just felt like in terms of the Knicks trying to claw their way in, show you're a factor, and then for Tatum to do what he does. In that moment, it seemed just to create, even though, again, close game goes to overtime, it just felt like one of those moments where the Celtics showed again why they're going to be thoroughly in the mix.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Boston is I think Boston is favored against Cleveland in that eventual Eastern Conference Finals matchup. You know, game 7 would be in Cleveland, but Boston has too much experience, too much depth. And when Kristaps is on the floor, I mean, I don't know how you guard them over a 7-game series. So, I mean, Boston is absolutely still there. Like, to your point about the Knicks, I think they were, in fact, I know they were winless against Cleveland and Boston. Coming up as I did in the NBA during the LeBron Cleveland years, I always like to say and think that what happens in the regular season is not necessarily a harbinger for a team's chances against any one other franchise in a 7-game series. The Knicks are third. They've done it with, they've had some injuries throughout the year, and so that's still a pretty good season. What they need to figure out is how do they survive that second round matchup against Boston? How do they figure out, how do they overcome the depth of the Celtics and, being a worse defensive team than they have been since they got good again in New York? How do they make up for that? I mean, they're not quite as dynamic of an offensive club as the Celtics are, as Cleveland is. Cleveland still has the number 1 offense in the league, but they have stars and they have a little bit of size now. So we'll see. But I think to your point, it's just, you can call it deflating, you can call it a reminder, but just in a regular season campaign to not get 1 win against either of those 2 franchises is it's a bummer.
We just showed the Eastern Conference standings there, and I say this mostly kidding, but when you look at who's going to be in that play-in tournament in the East, is there ever a scenario where the NBA just scraps that, just basically says, like, this is awful? I know the Heat and the Bulls are both winning right now, but you got multiple teams going in at 7 games below 500. It just feels like,
right.
As the NFL considers things like not giving a team with a losing record a home game in the playoffs, that maybe the NBA would be like, all right, you got to be at least with a 500 team to actually get into this thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Magic you can be okay with because that they played a huge swath of the year without Wagner and then without Paolo. So 39-40, maybe by the time it's all said and done, they get over that 500 mark. How do they match up against the Celtics in a first round? I mean, the Magic can't shoot, but they are good defensively. So that would, maybe give the Celtics something to think about. I want to differ with you a little bit on the other side of that bracket. Chicago, after just a miserable season, where they end up having to trade, Zach and I mean, it looks like they're going, the way of a rebuild. And here they are again towards the bottom of the play-in, except they're 12-7 over the last month. And they have been pounding teams. I don't like them in a first round matchup against Cleveland over 7 games, but they're can I say they're a tough out? I mean, I kind of like them to get through the play-in. I kind of expect the Bulls to be that first round matchup right now against the Cavs. And that's just a testament to the players they have there, to Billy Donovan. Kobe White has just been awesome. They didn't play any of those guys. I think they sat like 5 regulars last night in Cleveland to gear up for tonight's matchup against the Heat. They have they're tied with the Heat. They own the tiebreaker So you think the winner of that game is going to end up hosting that 9-10 matchup in the first round of the play-in.
Great stuff, Joe. Enjoy a big game in Dallas tonight. Also, we've been cooking up a theory in here that you could have a sleeper cell scenario where Mark Cuban or whoever from Mavericks management might fly in the courtside tattoo guy, as he calls himself, who got Luka ejected last night, dress him in that same Thank You, Luka shirt, just sitting there. So just keep an eye out. Anybody with too many tats courtside, let us know if he shows up. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks for the heads up.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.